If you are in a moment with tremendous heightened emotion, do not react, do not respond, do not speak anything you can never take back. Because once said, it cannot ever be taken back. You can apologize, you can say I didn't mean it, it was in the heightened emotion, but you can never take it back. It's always going to be there. Welcome to the Empowered Life Podcast, a space dedicated to spreading the message that you have the power within to create everything you seek.
So if you're ready to enroll in a new kind of higher learning, the kind that leads to true personal freedom, then hang here with us.
We're your hosts, Rudi and Aniston Riekstins, and this is the Empowered Life. Welcome to the InPowered Life Podcast. My name is Rudi Riekstins. I'm your host, and in all transparency, I wasn't planning on recording this episode, and most certainly wasn't planning on recording this episode today. But I do believe that my life is always teaching me, and as I go through experience, I have to turn around and share what it is that I'm experiencing. And in being able to do that, I am supporting the people who are 1 to 2 steps behind me. And I think that that is true for every single one of us. And so I wanted to start today's episode that way. And more than you just listening to what I'm about to share with you, because it is going to carry the potential, as I love to remind you, everything as is information is simply just that, unless you take it and somehow put it into practice. But I want you to also think about, what are you going through? What have you just navigated? And what has that qualified you to be able to turn around to teach and or to share? I have recently done a number of episodes on the podcast as it relates to my relationship with my children, specifically with my son. I spoke into some of the transformations that I experienced hosting a men's retreat, Aniston hosting a women's retreat, and a lot of the questions that have come forward have been around communication, have been around relationship. Speaking into the breakdown in relationship is always based on misunderstandings, miscommunications, and a sometimes positive intention for a conversation can be completely misguided or misstrued and not interpreted the way that somebody intended. And so what I really want to do today is unpack a process that Aniston and I have in our marriage that we devised consciously and a little bit of it unconsciously, but it has become a way of being that supports us in continuing to maintain an incredible high level of communication. And yesterday, I had a conversation with Aniston about something that was very triggering to me, meaning she had done something and or said something and it hurt my feelings. And rather than allowing that conversation to be buried and not to bring the conversation back up, which I want to remind you, let me start right up front. Let me hit you with the doozy. Statistically speaking, we are now almost at a 60% divorce rate in North America, 50% divorce rate globally, which means every single wedding that you see, there is a 50-50 plus chance that that's not going to work. I do believe that the majority of those is just based on a lack of miscommunication. I don't believe people enter into a marriage with the thought of, well, this doesn't work out, I could always get out of it. I don't believe that resentment and frustration and anger that is built in a relationship is always necessary, meaning you could absolutely create some very simple shifts or changes in how you show up, how you communicate, so that you don't harbor resentment, so that you don't bury frustrations that eventually grow and turn into something that they don't need to be.
Hey, it's Aniston Riekstins here, and I want to ask you, have you ever wondered if there's more to your life and work than what you're doing right now? What if I told you that the universe is hiring and you were born to fill a role that will bring you true purpose and success? In my new #1 best-selling book, The Universe is Hiring, Discover the Role You Were Born to Fill, I'm going to show you exactly how to step into that role. This isn't just a book full of inspiration. It's a roadmap to help you start shifting into a more fulfilling life right now. You'll get clear on your unique purpose, learn how to align with your strengths, and take actionable steps towards the career and life that truly light you up. If you're ready to make a change and start living the life you were meant for, grab your copy today. Available anywhere you buy your books online or click the link in the show notes.
Aniston had said something, and it was just a fleeting conversation, and it really made me feel in that moment unseen, unvalued, unappreciated by my soulmate, by my twin flame, by the person who is supposed to, in my mind, see me, love me, and ultimately wants to spend time with me where I am the priority. And when she said it, it really, really upset me. And I was on the phone with her. And when I ended the call, I really had that thought of like, wow, that took me by surprise. I can't believe that she would say that. And it was just something really silly. It was like where she was placing her priority of time. And it wasn't really a big deal, but it was very hurtful to me. And so I sat with it. What I noticed was that started to grow. And every day I started to feel that I was viewing all my conversations with her around that topic. And I do this work enough to know that, okay, this is something that I need to address. But I've also spoken very openly on the podcast that life is a mirror to you. All relationships are a mirror to you. And that when you see things coming up in your relationship, it's really more about you fixing you than it is about the other person fixing what they said or what they did. And so that's exactly how I approached this. I was going to fix me. I was going to fix the part of me that felt it needed validation from her, the part of me that was upset, the part of me that was expecting her to be a certain way or to say a certain thing or to treat me a certain, way to have a certain outcome. And I still felt that anxiety building. And so I was continuing to do this inner work, meaning every day sitting with that and asking myself, why do I still feel it? Where's the emotion coming from? Where do I remember this in my past? And I was in the process of doing this work. And then one morning, about 4 days after this initial incident, I was in the gym and I was busy using a weight as I did a butterfly exercise, moving two weights up. I all of a sudden felt a pop in my left upper shoulder. And I immediately stopped, put the weight down, and said, that's it, I'm done for the day. That then turned into the whole shoulder becoming just one seized muscle, like everything had spasmed. And 2 days later, I couldn't turn my neck. I was just in excruciating pain. The day after that, the pain was traveling down my arm. And so I had done cupping, I had done scraping, massage, anything you can think of to try and eradicate that. Aniston had started doing emotion code clearing on me, and nothing was easing the tension in these muscles until yesterday. And so yesterday I had done what I was doing, the cupping. I did more of the gaucher treatments. I had acupuncture done, massage, and doing the physical work. But I started doing the inner work as well. And I realized what was happening was I was processing this and I was carrying this burden, which felt like a weight on my left shoulder that was so intense that it had caused my entire body to spasm on the left side. And the only way to balance this scale, so to speak, my body being the scale, was to have this clearing conversation, was not to simply do the inner work myself, but was to speak my truth, to be able to say lovingly to my wife, hey, what you said really hurt me and here's why. And not in an attacking way, not in a way of like, you did that and you're wrong and you need to change, because that wasn't the energy with which I approached the conversation. In fact, we were just like we always do, lovingly, beautifully, romantically, sitting in front of an open fire outside, the perfect weather conditions, and we were just having a beautiful conversation. And then I said to her, I really want to talk to you about this energy that I feel is unbalanced in my body that's causing my body to seize. And I think it's tied to an experience. And that experience was, followed by my body spasming. And I think it's because I'm not communicating what I was emotionally processing. And it was triggered by something you said. And I acknowledge I need to do the work, but I wanted to also share with you and speak out my truth. And I'm just going to ask you to receive my truth. And so I did. As best I could, I communicated my truth. And for the most part, Aniston took it and listened and listened and listened and then said, that was obviously not my intention. And here was the information behind what you processed. And I could see her point of view. But at some point in time, it profoundly triggered her. And she became very, very angry. Like I could tell that there was a lot of emotion in her. There was this massive shift. But here's what I want you to hear. She didn't attack me. She didn't name or blame me. I wasn't naming or blaming her. We were just sharing two different truths. She very calmly, through gritted teeth, shared her experience, her frustration in, how could I perceive this in a way where I'm not her priority. And she's like, I make you my priority in every area of life. How is this one little thing, which I could see you taking it that way, but how could that have any bearing in relation to everything else? And then we stopped talking about it, but we didn't have resolution. She just said, well, I'm really sorry for what I did. And I was like, I wasn't really looking for an apology. I just wanted to communicate my position and, let's do the inner work. And then we sat in front of the fire. She did some work. I went in, I made dinner, but there was an energetic shift. There was a heavy intensity that had kind of like landed on both of us. We ate dinner as a family and there wasn't a lot of talking. And then we sat down to watch a documentary with the kids. Halfway through, we turned it off. Neither of us were really paying attention. We did our tea and books, and we went upstairs. We eventually went to bed, but there was that very uncomfortableness. Now, I want to be transparent as I possibly can. We were not angry at each other. We were not resentful of each other. We were both having an inner dialogue. We both identified that we had been triggered. And for us to continue having that conversation in a heightened, triggered state, we would be communicating to our partner through the trigger, not through the other side of the trigger, which is where the resolution comes from. And this is the lesson in today's episode. The majority of people are having conversations with their spouses from the wounded version of who they are, from the person who was abandoned at childhood, from the version who was told they weren't good enough or weren't worthy, or from the wounded version of them who was cheated on when they were teenagers, and they're now bringing that into their marriage. And then when they're triggered by their spouse for any reason, then all of a sudden it's not that single incident that they're reacting and responding to. It's the wound. It's the version of them that has felt this pain over a very long period of time. And in a heightened state of emotion, if you're not able to create separation, now I teach how to create separation. But when you're dealing with a lifelong trigger, that separation is more difficult to create in the moment because you're in it. It's all consuming like a blanket wrapping around you. And rather than continuing to talk to the person that you're wanting to create resolution with from a place of kind, loving, compassion, you can't do that when you're triggered. You're only going to defend, deflect, and attack because that's how you're trying to save yourself in that moment. And so instinctively, Aniston knew, go inward. Don't respond to this trigger. Her going inward forced me to go inward. And the two of us sat really, for the most part, in our heads. And we went to bed. I got up out of bed about 10 minutes later and I was like, okay, I'm not going to fall asleep right now. I need to go and do the inner work right now before I go to bed. I need resolution. I'm not going to get resolution through her in this moment, but I can get it with me. And so I went and did a meditation. I sat down in the office downstairs. I calmed my mind, calmed my body, and then I asked, what was it about the situation that caused me emotion? What was it about her talking to her that increased this heightened level of emotion? What do I think she's feeling? And these were questions I was asking myself as I was able to articulate the position. At the end of this, which probably took me the better part of 30 to 40 minutes, I was completely calm, completely neutral, void of stress, fear, anxiety, overwhelm, worry about my relationship or what was happening. And I was able to go to bed. I was able to get a really good night's sleep. I woke up this morning around 4:35, got out of bed, did my morning priming, my mind, my body for the day that I want to have. And at 6:00, the two of us came together and we had the most beautiful healing conversation. Aniston walked in with a fresh cup of coffee for me. She sat down on the couch in my office and she said, I'm really glad that we took last night to really process. And then she said to me, I identified in the moment that I had been triggered, and the level of emotion, the triggering of the heavy emotion, that immediate anger, frustration, resentment, all of that builds up so fast. She said, I was able to, as if witnessing the experience, know it wasn't from this situation. Because if I looked at what you said, and then I looked at the volume of reaction I had, it wasn't equal. And I was like, okay, well, if it's not equally tied to that conversation, then where is this coming from? And so she said, so I just sat in that. And I sat in that knowing that if I were to communicate anything at this time, then it would be coming from my wound. She said that she was reading at one point, looked up at me and had the thought of being able to communicate something because she wanted to fix it. She wanted to solve it. She didn't want to have the space between us. And then she said, no, because if I say anything now, it's coming from the wounded Aniston, not from the healed Aniston. And so she went to sleep and woke up in the morning. She got up at 4, went into her office, closed the door, meditated, came out of her meditation, and then she started asking the questions. What is this anger, resentment, frustration, this emotion, this triggering trying to teach her? Where did it come from? And she was very clearly in that state, separate from the conversation we had in front of the fire the day before, able to see this very clearly. Oh my gosh, this comes from my childhood. There was this moment. There was this moment. Oh, in that relationship, it came up. Oh my God, in that friendship, and that friendship, all the same patterns. So that when I mentioned it in front of a fire, which sounded like it would just be a normal conversation that we would have, like, oh my gosh, you said something, it offended me, and I know you didn't mean it that way, but it hit that mark and it brought all that emotion up, that in that moment she realized, oh my gosh, this is coming up because I'm now ready to clear it. This is what I want everybody to walk away from today's episode with. There's a number of things, but this is the most important. All of the triggering emotions that are coming up for you right now are only coming up to bring awareness to the fact that you're ready to release them. You no longer have to carry them, but you have to do the work to let them go. You have to recognize what they are, what the value is, and why you actually have had these experiences. Because in her being able to see the pattern through her entire life of how they've come up, from her parent dynamics to her friendships to her relationships to eventually, in this instance, in her marriage, that she could see, oh, I'm the common denominator. I'm the theme in this. And then it's not attacking to her husband, who's the one that created the trigger. For so many marriages, and I do believe the reason that we have such a high divorce rate is because, for the most part, people in relationship are not doing the work. And the inner work is with themselves. Why are they being triggered? How is their partner mirroring back to them the work that they need to do? Where did the pattern come from? When did it start? How is it shown up in different relationships and different situations? How have they always reacted and how could they do it differently? And then what's the meaning in that? And in the end, Aniston turned around and said to me this morning, like, oh my gosh, here's all the value of what I learned. I'm so grateful for it. I didn't like the feeling. I didn't like going to bed last night, having that heaviness between us. Again, no fighting, no arguing, no negative words thrown back and forth, no defensiveness, but it was just a heaviness that we're not used to. And she said, I just really, am grateful that I had that momentary heaviness so it could force me to really think about, where has this been coming up and where could I own my side? When she finished talking, I immediately said to her, oh my gosh, I have to apologize because for me, I'm reacting from the version of myself that fears that everybody will leave me. And that came from a childhood memory. I was 6 or 7 years old and my mom just left. She packed up her stuff and she left. She was having a really difficult time in her marriage. She was frustrated in the home that she had 3 boys that didn't help at all with cleaning, and we would make a mess, and we were just, rambunctious kids, all under 10. And in a heightened moment of her needing to create some level of reprieve, she packed her bags and she went to go and visit her sister in another city. But my little 6-year-old self, and then again when I was around 8, and then again when I was around 10, because there were 3 instances, I processed this that my mother can leave. And in experiencing the pain and the agony of the person who's supposed to be my safety net, the person who's supposed to protect me, who's supposed to love me unconditionally, left and made comments like, I'm leaving because you never helped me clean. You treat me like I'm the one that has to do the work. And in my mind, as a 6-year-old boy, I wasn't thinking about having to pick up dishes and make my bed. And even though those were things my mom was asking of us, in my mind, that didn't equate to me being a good or a bad person. But when she left, I all of a sudden realized, oh, wow, when I don't effort, when I don't work hard, when I don't overperform, when I don't think of other people's needs, then I'm bad. And the only way to get people to stay is if I overperform, if I think of their needs, if I anticipate what they need to do. And that's where Rudi started doing laundry before he was asked. That's where Rudi got out of bed before his alarm went off. That's when Rudi tried to overperform. That's the high-performing version of me that is so highly successful, especially in guiding my clients to be successful. All came from a trigger wound of feeling like if I don't, outperform, constantly show value, that people can leave me. And in that single moment of that single conversation with my wife, it triggered that emotion in me. And had we not had this instance of the phone call, me sitting with it, my body showing me the evidence of the trapped emotion that I wasn't doing the work I was avoiding, the deeper work, which was having the conversation with her. And in all of that, I was given the gift of sight. And I turned to her and I said, man, I'm really sorry, because even when I had that conversation, as much as I could bring logic into it, I still realized it was being triggered because I have that unconscious belief that everybody will leave if I don't perform. And when you had made the comment, that's the emotion that came. Even though I wasn't logically thinking it, I've never had the thought of, oh my God, my wife's going to leave me. But I had the emotional equivalent of that statement. And in having that, it's a gift. Because who is Rudi when he no longer walks into his marriage, conversation with his kids, into a business meeting, onto a stage in front of 85,000 people without the worry of, oh, I need to perform to a certain level or people are going to leave me? Because that was just an unconscious, trapped, triggered emotion that is compounded over the course of my life. My wife's also not true, no longer needs to compound. And it's bringing us closer and it's making us more whole and healed. And I don't think that there is anything more powerful in the world than two people who come together as one. And the only way that two people can come together as one is if they have nothing between them, no space between them. And the space is often in the things unsaid. So here are your lessons. What is unsaid in your relationship right now that if you gave it voice to, you would give it power, but power for positive, power for change, not power for attacking, not power for defending your position, being able to beautifully articulate, hey, something came up, this is what you said, this is how it made me feel, and having the deep, meaningful conversation, allowing them to have a reaction, allowing them to respond. And the moment that you realize either of you have hit a point of heightened emotion where now you just want to fight, attack, defend, say mean things, that you pause and you stay in the uncomfortableness until you're in a place to create separation. I feel like I need to go deeper here for a second because I have a memory of me in my early 20s of having a fight with somebody that I was in a relationship with, and we had broken up and we were in the process of getting back together again. And then they did something that really offended me. And I left a message for them and I said, I hope I never see you again. I was so mad in that moment because they'd really done something very hurtful. And then I heard a short while after that they died. And I had to sit with that for a long time, years, of having a fight with someone, having a disagreement with someone, saying something you can never take back. And the last words she ever heard from me was, I hope I never see you again. And that was like, that came true. And that's not how I would want that to end. It's not how I would want any conversation to end. And so I created a mantra, if you will, in my life and in my relationships to never leave an argument unsaid, to never not resolve something. And so we would get into bed and I would say, we're not going to bed until we unpack this. And we would sit for hours and Aniston would be trying to fall asleep, like her eyeballs would be closing. She's so tired. I'd be like, we haven't resolved it, because I never wanted it to end. But what I've realized is our relationship has evolved so much more beautifully, wholly, when we do create enough space so that we can clear ourselves, so we don't speak from the victim, we don't speak from the hurt, from the trigger, from the wound. We now speak from a position of compassion, first for ourselves and then for our partner. And that can only come from creating space. And so I want to challenge you that if you are in a moment with tremendous heightened emotion, do not react, do not respond, do not speak anything you can never take back. Because once said, It cannot ever be taken back. You can apologize. You can say, I didn't mean it. It was in the heightened emotion, but you can never take it back. It's always going to be there. And instead, just say, I'm feeling really triggered right now, or I appreciate you sharing what you shared. I would like to sit with this for a moment. Give me time to process this, and I will come back to you. So Aniston and I will often hand each other information. And when we do, we don't assume that person's ready for the information. We give them the information because that's our job in the moment. And then we say, if we're the receiving person, well, give me time to process. And that's it. That's all you need to do, is create the space for each person to go through their process of, organizing the information, what's true for them, how do they want to react or respond, not with heightened emotion, but being able to come out the other side with a higher level vantage point, and then beautifully coming together and having a whole healed conversation. I do think that if you bring this into your marriage, it's going to create tremendous change, tremendous growth, and you're going to be able to remove some of those spaces that have been created over time. The same way that you can take money and putting it into a high yield account, it's going to, again, compound interest over time, become an astronomical amount of money. Well, the same thing is going to be true that when you compound resentments over time, it is going to compound into a massive, massive, massive issue that will be really difficult to erase. There'll be lots of things said, unsaid, actions and behaviors that will be interpreted from both sides. And that usually is where we end in, we need to get a divorce. There's no way of working through these issues because we're on two different sides of the spectrum. But we're not. We're just not communicating clearly enough. And so I hope that you find value in what was, for Aniston and I, a very difficult conversation with a lot of emotion and tremendous gifts in the clarity that came through on the other side that have brought us closer. And my intention is that our experience brings you and your person closer. I love you so much. I hope that you find tremendous value in this. Share this with that special person in your life in hopes that they too will be open to creating the safe space for you two to heal. We'll catch you in the next episode of the InPowered Life Podcast. Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. And we would love your support in leaving us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Make sure to check the show notes for more information on how you can find us online and on Instagram. Now go create an amazing day for yourself, and we'll see you again soon.